Hello, everybody. Oh, no, wrong intro. What's up, Golden Frying Pan people? Welcome back to the kitchen. I hope you guys are having a good week. I'm going to try and keep this brief. I've been trying to record this for genuinely 4 hours. Now, admittedly, a part of that was me just getting distracted by playing Resident Evil 2 Remake. But no, I did try and start this thing like 5 different times. Yeah, this is even the second time I've tried to just do a dub over. This is ridiculous. It's insane. But regardless, I do want to make one, and I woke up early to make one of these, and I'm still not. It's 10 o'clock. I woke up at 6, and I'm still not done with this. Whatever. I hope you guys have had a good week. I do have a conversation in mind for this video. Let's see about making it brief, though. Last week, I talked about missions and everything like that, or goals, setting the right goals. And something that I was thinking about this week, because I have a goal. I have a video coming up, and it's going to be about monopolies and everything like that. And something that I was thinking of while I was thinking of this Monopoly video, right, was basically looking at this sense of why are things really happening? You know, why are things happening the way that they're happening, and how are things going the way that they are? Especially in reference to the thoughts that I've recently had about goal setting and proper stuff. And something that I thought of was kind of working on goals in a more individual way that kind of builds up the collective. Last week I didn't really have a good word for it, and I don't really have one for it now. But I have put more thought into it. The reason why I brought up the Monopoly thing and everything like that is because I wanted to use the reference of like talking about companies. You know, companies very often have mission statements, and they tend to be these grandiose, like, oh, we want to make the world a better place through our products, yeah, right? But we all know it's bullcrap. We all know it's stupid. It's not real. That's not the reason why companies are around. That's not the reason why Amazon is around. Amazon is not around to make our life easier. Amazon is around to make money. And they make money off of making our life easier. Right? Or I guess it's a better way to put it is making our life easier, quote unquote, also makes them money. But that sort of slip up, that inverse, is what I wanted to talk about. Because whenever setting goals, right, it's very easy to look at it, to look for the money, to look after the money, you know, to go after that. And that's definitely what most companies do. And I can't necessarily fault them for that, given that without money that they would go bankrupt. However, I would like to state, I'd like to think at least, that the most effective companies, at least whenever they started off, are companies that did not start off with the intent goal of making money. Whenever the intent goal is to make money, I don't feel like they do quite as well. The goal was to do something else, you know, like share something or do something really well, provide a service, X, Y, or Z. That was their initial goal. Their initial goal was to do something, and they made money off of doing that thing and off of doing it well. But as time goes on and they get bigger and bigger and bigger, their goals shift. It's no longer a goal to, you know, do this service well. The goal is now to make money by doing that service, right? Instead of doing that service and you make money so you can do that service, it is you do that service so you can make money. Does that make sense? I realized that I just shuffled words around and pretended like I'm a philosopher or something like that. But it was genuinely a realization that I had whenever I was watching a movie last night, Spirited Away. Very good movie. Highly recommend it. It's won like several awards though. That's not a controversial or new take. While I was watching this movie, there was a particular aspect of it where, while the main character is definitely in a hopeless situation. The organization that she found herself a part of was very interesting to me on a specific level because don't get me wrong, the person in charge of it is probably evil, probably, and is entirely focused on money and taking care of that. I don't know. It seemed it operated with such a degree of cohesion in character, which doesn't tend to be found whenever people don't feel compensated. Whenever they don't, I guess compensated isn't the right word. Whenever people don't feel like money is at the core of it. I don't know if that makes sense. When there's no real pride in what you do, it's a deadly sin. It's a definitely it's a yeah. As I was saying, it's important to care about what you do, and the reason why I thought of that, why it was so interesting to me to see that was specifically because of I've been thinking about monopolies and different things which just are so alien from doing what, like, I don't know. Watching the movie, there felt like a general sense of cohesion and understanding from each of the parts. Like it was a fast-paced thing, but it was something that you had to deal with, and so you just dealt with it, right? That's what it was. You knew that you had to deal with it, and so you learned to deal with it. And it's not like it got easier, but you got better at doing it, and so it was easier for you. The task itself didn't get easier, but you got more competent. And I don't know, it feels like more often than not it gets really easy to just start cutting corners and doing something and being a part of something and buying into that easier mentality, right? Buying into that sense of temporary isn't the right word for it, neither is like superficial or anything like that, but it's just not as, I guess, concrete of a way of looking at things, right? It's just not quite effective. Maybe concrete isn't the right word, because whenever I go into work and it's like an easy job or whatever, and there's just a general monotony, that what I'm doing isn't necessarily difficult. It's just it's mind numbing. It's really anyone could do it, and there's no sense of value or pride in what I'm doing. There's no sense of worth in what I'm doing. And there's definitely jobs that are okay to be like that, but it's not something that I feel like the worker should deal with in that scenario. Like, the compensation should be according, like, I don't know. The idea that whenever you don't know what you want to do and you don't necessarily want to go to college or something like that means that naturally you have to apply yourself by well, no, not apply yourself, that you don't have to apply yourself, that like things, since you're getting an easier job, the job itself should be not as valuable. And I don't think that makes sense. I don't think that makes sense at all. Because if you want, since the people aren't going to inherently care about, necessarily whatever they do. Like, I doubt most of the factory workers were really, really passionate about making steel, back in the day, back in the good old days. I doubt that they were really, really passionate about making steel. But I bet that they were pretty passionate about not dying or, providing for a family, or being able to be an active community member. These things which are there to help build us up. I don't know. Whenever your job, there's gives and takes for everything. I'm not going to pretend like I know what I'm talking about, really, or what I'm saying to have any sense of weight behind it. But it's just something that I've been thinking about as of recent. Of you want to have something that's goal is not to make money. I think whenever we have things where the goal itself is to make money, that those things lose their value quite quickly and quite effectively. And it's not like they lose their dominance in the market, because obviously the market's there to make money. And so if your job as a company is to make money, the market will not punish you. The market itself will not punish you. But that is not to say that there won't be any repercussions. And similarly in your life, it's not saying that there won't, going after the big goal, going after the big, make more money or do this, that, or the other thing, won't necessarily punish you, right? It won't. But that doesn't mean that it's really going to reward you in the way that will be sustainable, right? Like, you won't be punished. Of course you won't be punished for wanting to, work a lot, wanting to have a lot of money. You won't be punished for having a dream, having a dream of wanting to be famous, or you won't inherently be punished. But you also might not be rewarded the way that you expect to be, which in itself very well might as well be a punishment, because you're still not getting what you want. And if you're doing it, I'm assuming you're doing it to get what you want, right? Whenever your goal is to get what you want, then everything else doesn't really matter, because you're not getting what you want if you don't get what you want, right? And I mean that, okay, I realize that that was just me saying the same thing over and over again, but I mean that in a genuine sense of, like, if you do not apply yourself to really care about the process, if you care about the process instead of just the result, then even if you don't get the result, you will still get what you want, because you're getting the process. If you want the process and the result is a byproduct of that process, then even if you don't get the result, the intended result, I guess, a result, because not every result is the definite result. There is no control, absolute control or security or anything like that in your life. It just doesn't exist. It might exist for somebody, but it definitely doesn't exist for us. So whenever you have a goal, it's important a lot more to care about the process than it is the goal. And that's not to say that you shouldn't have a goal, not to say that I shouldn't have a goal, not to say that you shouldn't necessarily need a goal, but something that I realized throughout Spirited Away is it was a really good movie that hooked you from one moment to the next. And it was one of the best movies that I can think of, not because of the resolution, not because I could tell it was building to some great spectacle or anything like that. I wasn't watching to get to the end of the movie. I was just watching every scene like I was watching the scene, because I wanted to see what was happening in that world. Like, the scene itself was interesting, right? It didn't necessarily need to prop itself up on, having this, that, or the other thing, of having this really interesting MacGuffin of, like, we need to get this thing, we need, everything like that. The world itself was interesting. Every scene was interesting. Every part was interesting in itself. And so it was something that by the time that I got to the end of it, it was I was, I wouldn't say moved, but it was definitely beautiful. Something that I found myself appreciating a whole lot more than something that, might have had a good ending, but it is just that. It's building towards the ending. And in those, the story tends to be as good as the ending is. So I guess the thing that I'm saying is try to not make your story just amount to the ending. Because what if you don't get that ending? You know? What if you don't get what you want? Well, it's not like it was all for nothing, but it was not all that you would have wanted. That's for sure. And yeah, I don't know. It's difficult to say one way or another of like I'm getting rambly. Sorry, I'm getting rambly. This is the problem that I had whenever I was trying to record it earlier. This is not something that I can tell you and then everyone be like, yeah, yeah, because it's the fact that you've heard 1,000 different times. It's like hearing that, you should work hard or you should go to the gym. Going to the gym is healthier than eating sweets. Like, oh, really? But even if I say it, until you genuinely come to terms with that, whenever it's no longer cringe, whenever it is no longer, something lame, whenever it's, instead of something being told to you, it's something that you grow through. It's just something recently that I learned with, and I came to terms with isn't the right term, but I started approaching it. I approached it a lot more rationally. I rationalized it a lot more than I have in the past, and so yeah, yeah. Hope you guys have had a good week. Hope you guys had a good Valentine's Day. I'm sure you guys were expecting me to talk about Valentine's Day, but no, 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 no. I did not. I hope you guys have a good week, and I hope that this wasn't too rambly or, absent-minded, because I spent 3 hours trying to record this video. It was, yeah, it was something. But I hope you guys have a good week, and I will see you all next week. Bye-bye.